give us a call at 1-800-676-5446. Our volunteer phone panel will be glad to help you. You can also contact us with pictures and emails for a future show. That address is byf@unl.edu. We do need to know where you live. Give us as much information as you can so we can give you a good answer. So let's start with some samples. Jody, a lovely little box.
I got a box of stinging insects, but today I'm going to talk about yellow jackets. So what I have here on the left side are yellow jackets, and they often have several tiers, and so I've got these kind of flipped upside down so you can see them. The large one there is the queen. She started a nest probably in April, May, so pretty early. But right now is when we're feeling those stings because we may be getting close to where the nest is, and they are social wasps, so they're gonna sting you. They are most commonly mistaken for honeybees, and so I just wanted to show the difference. And I wanted to show that they actually do look pretty small and cute, so that's why they're mistaken, but they usually live in the ground. So old rodent burrows, so wherever you've had voles in the past, which is a lot of people in their garden. So, you wanna make sure if you see insects coming and going frequently and guards flying around, that those are yellow jackets. So you want to make sure to leave the area during the day, treat at night, or call a professional. And we do have a segment in our YouTube channel that has me in a bee suit at night wearing a red headlamp, removing and treating a yellow jacket nest, if you want to look at that.
Perfect. Thank you, Jody. All right, Terry, what is that?
So this is one of my nemesises out of my own backyard. This is a Spanish needle. So oftentimes people think it is maybe, well, it looks like it is a bidden. So lots of people like this, but sometimes they think it's some ornamental plants, but it is pretty. However, this one will get to be about 12 to 16 inches tall. And it's the seeds that you really have to watch out for. They'll be about an inch, inch and a half long, and they have these little pokey things on it that I think that even if you walk 5 feet away from it, they just kind of fly in and attach to you, and you'll have them all over the place. These actually are in my yard because they were not taking care of and managing my commons area very well for the past couple years. So they have migrated into my yard, so now that they are my problem. So I've been using my soil knife and removing them as often as possible before they get big and before they go to seed.
Perfect, and I have them in the shade at my house, so there you go. All right, Lauren, that's teensy weensy. What is that?
Well, I have some grass blades out of turf tonight, Kim, and when we leave the studio tonight, it's gonna be 93 degrees. And this is perfect weather for brown patch. So if you have a fescue lawn specifically, that's most commonly, we'll occasionally see it in bluegrass, but most of the time it's just in fescue. But you can see these lesions that have, darker margins around the edge. They're irregular in shape. They don't go straight across the leaf like we do see with dollar spot when it's a little cooler. You'll see larger patches in the yard. Many times they'll take like a smoke ring appearance. And if you see that, there's a good chance you're dealing with brown patch. So you can use a fungicide, but you can also just let it run its course and go ahead and overseed this fall.
All right, thanks, Lauren. Okay, Kelly, your turn.
Okay, mine's a little bit different. I'm focusing on the roots of this plant. So it is actually portulaca, but pay no attention to the plant, pay attention to the roots. And the reason I brought this tonight is because there's a little bit of misunderstanding about roots sometimes. I've heard people say that roots will go in search of water when they need it. They won't. Roots grow where there's water and oxygen in the soil. And I think a lot of people think that plants cannot be overwatered. So right now it's very, very hot out, and plants will respond sometimes by rolling up their leaves or drooping. And the instinct is, oh, it needs water. So we go out and we water, and we end up overwatering, and then that displaces the oxygen in the soil, and the roots they can end up rotting. At the minimum, they'll just stop functioning and taking up water. So, it's really hot out. Plants are going to be rolling their leaves and so on. But before you water, check that soil to make sure it's not already wet or moist. We want to keep a uniformly moist soil, but we don't want it to be too wet because that displaces that oxygen. So we want these nice, healthy, white roots.
All right, thanks, Kelly. Okay, Jody, you get the first round of questions. You have two on this first one. These came to us from York, a landscape company, and they came via Kate. I said I was saving them for you, so it's a cottonwood and doing this sort of damage to the aspens. So what is this and what to do about it?
Yeah, these are cottonwood leaf beetles, and you can see that this is a great picture. This is why Kate shared this. And you can see that they've got the larvae and the adults on there, and they will feed all together, and they'll create that skeletonization. As they get older, they'll leave that midrib, and they do like poplars, so aspens and cottonwood and willow. And there's several generations. If it's a young tree, you may want to treat. Read and follow the label. You can likely buy something. But if it's an older tree, the leaves will grow back, and it will be fine.
All right, thanks. You have actually 3 pictures from 3 different people about these creatures right now. Lincoln, mostly Lincoln.
Yeah, these are everywhere. I've got these at my house too. This one, the first one is actually called a camel cricket, and someone in your class, remember, they talk about sprickets, especially in the East. They look kind of like a spider. These ones don't have wings, and they have really long legs, and so they call them sprickets. But you don't want them in your house, so you want to just make sure you get the debris around and away and turn off the lights at night. These ones I have at my house. These are striped ground crickets, and these are the nymph phase, so they don't have wings at this phase, but they will grow up and have wings. So if you have these around your foundation, you may want to treat. You can treat with a granular or any exterior foundation spray, because it's better when they're littler, because when they do have wings, they'll be more mobile. But a lot of non-chemical things, turn off the lights at night, remove the debris, remove the vegetation around the home and the moisture.
All right, thanks, Jody. Terry, you have 2 pictures on this one. This is a viewer in North Bend, Sandpit Lake. The lot is 100% sand, as we can see. They have no soil. They do want to seed with a fine-bladed fescue, put in shrubs, etc. They want to know how much topsoil they're going to need. They want to know if fine-bladed fescue is a good choice. And then something about adding a layer of clay first, and then the topsoil over the clay will hold the moisture in.
So yeah, lots of sand. You're gonna have to this is gonna be a lot of work. You're gonna have to put in at least 4 to 6 inches of good topsoil and a compost mix. More topsoil than compost, but put them in, and then you're gonna have to till it in. I would very highly suggest using a fescue bluegrass mix. That would probably be able to help you, especially if we do get into these droughts and you can't water them. The bluegrass will actually withstand some of those droughts a little bit better and go into a dormancy versus the fescue. So if you wanted to do that, that's what I would do, especially on that sand where you would lose more moisture a little bit more quickly. But lots of work, 4 to 6 inches at least, because that's the depth of your root zone. You're gonna till it in, so you're gonna have a lot of work, and if you wanted to get it done, you're gonna have to get it going here soon if you wanna get it planted this fall yet.
All right, thanks, Terry. You have 2 pictures on the next one. This comes to us from Fremont, and he's wondering, he says these are his cucumber plants. What are these, and how do you control them?
I'm sorry to be the bearer of bad news, but those are not cucumbers. That's velvet leaf, so those are a weed. Normally we find it a lot in agricultural crops. Just go out and pull them out. Don't let them go to seed. It looks like they're just about ready to, well, some of them are to seed. Don't let the seeds ripen and just pull them out. You can still replant a few cucumbers. Make sure you look at the back. You'll still have plenty of time if you need to replant some cucumbers.
All right, thanks, Terry. Lauren, speaking of cucumbers, you have a former cucumber. He says, how about my cucumbers? They wilt and die, and it happens every single year.
Oh, and that's pretty common to be an every year occurrence if they have this disease. So this is cucumber wilt, I believe. And this is a bacterial disease that's actually vectored by the cucumber beetle. So doing some good sanitation in the fall, cleaning that garden up to make sure you're not allowing sites for them to overwinter. The bacterium overwinters in the gut of the beetle.
And not one thing to do about this.
Not right now. It's
All
going to be
right.
covered.
You have 3 pictures on the next one. This is a Roma tomato, and this is in Hastings. She said the leaves are turning brown. She also says something about cuke leaves. She says Better Boy is not doing this, but she's wondering, what is this disease-based or what?
Yeah, so looking at this, all the leaves appear to be kind of burnt on the edge, which a lot of times indicates something with water or a root condition that's a problem. So I just encourage to make sure there's adequate moisture. If there is, this may be a plant that's failing, but you'll still be able to get some fruit out of it for the season, but just make sure it's watered well. The cucumbers in the picture I looked at as well, and that's a different problem. I think that's a foliar disease in the cucumber. That's anthracnose.
All right, thank you. Kelly, 2 pictures on the first one. This viewer said he's got these pumpkins, and they're pretty little. You can see based on the little rake there in the leaf.
Right.
He was wondering, will they get any bigger, especially since the one has already started to ripen? Is there anything he can do to make that happen, or did he just end up with little pumpkins?
Yeah, it might just be a variety that's a little pumpkin. So no, once they start to ripen, once they start turning orange, they're not going to get any larger in size. So, maybe if all the other ones end up ripening at this size, then it was just the variety is a small variety.
All right, 2 pictures on the next one. This is a Papillion viewer. She doesn't know what this vegetable is, and she's wondering, she thought it was lettuce, but
Okay. It looks like collards to me, so collard greens, and that's related in the brassica family, so it's related to kale, broccoli, cauliflower, and so on. So it is eaten as a green.
All right, thanks, Kelly. Well, you know, gardeners are familiar with all different sorts of mushrooms popping up around the garden. Are they harmful? Are they poisonous? Are they harmless? How do we get rid of them? Kyle is going to give us some tips on fungus among us around our landscapes.
With some of the recent moisture that we've been seeing, at least in this part of Nebraska, and I know other parts of Nebraska have seen quite a bit of moisture as well, we have a lot of new things that are popping up in our landscapes, in our yards, and in our gardens. A lot of different mushroom questions have been coming in, especially as we've been had a lot more moisture than we were used to, at least for the first couple of months of the spring. Now, everybody wants to know, what kind of mushroom is it? And can I eat it? First, never eat a mushroom unless you know 100% what it is. There are too many lookalikes out there, and it's just not worth the risk to consume a mushroom and possibly get sick. But if you are wanting to identify some mushrooms just out of curiosity and to see what exactly is there are a few things that we really need to look at. And so one of the really important things that we want to look at is not only the top part of the mushroom, but we also want to see, what does the underside of that cap look like? Do we have gills on the underside of that cap? If we have gills, we can be thinking that it's a type of agaric mushroom, or maybe one of our russulas, one of our little brown mushrooms. Or on the underside of that cap, are we seeing something else? Maybe it looks like a bunch of little holes, little pores. Those little pores that we see are serve the same function as gills, but if we look at the bottom of a cap of a mushroom and we see pores, there we're looking at most likely one of our boletes. And so that's a great way to differentiate your mushrooms. If the underside of the cap has pores, in general they're going to be a bolete. If they have gills, they are not going to be a bolete. And now, some of the other things that we always want to look for is also, what does the top of that cap look like? Or is there any color change that we're seeing? But also we want to look at the stem or the stipe of that mushroom. And because different features along that stipe or that stem certainly can give you some better indications about what type of mushroom we are truly looking at. There's a lot of great fun mushrooms that are popping up. They have so many different methods of spore dispersal. Right now, especially with this heat coming in, we're going to see a lot of our inky cap mushrooms start kind of turning black and gooey and just dropping black gunk. And that black gunk will be filled with spores and flies will disperse it. Really very similar as we see with a lot of our stinkhorn mushrooms. And now the boletes that I talked about that have the big fleshy caps with pores on the underside, typically, they will be dropping spores just right out of those little pores, so out of those little holes. So another way that we can also use to identify which mushroom we're looking at is you can take the top of that cap and just tap it onto some white paper, and then you'll be able to see what color of spore print are we really looking at. And so if we were able to get a good picture of the top part of the mushroom, the underside of the cap, and then also the stem or the stipe, and especially if you do have the time to get a spore print, that gives us almost all of the information that we would need to correctly and accurately identify what type of mushroom you are looking at.
Mushrooms do perform that valuable service to us by breaking down rotting plant material. Most of the time, they are really a part of nature's wondrous pageantry. All right, Jody.
Well,
First,
Kim, if I can make just a quick
Yes.
comment on that one. There are some great AI tools out there that people can take pictures of and identify, at least get close.
At least get close.
So, yeah, so there's
Still don't
some
eat
other
it.
resources out there. Not to eat them, but
all right,
great thing
thanks,
to take a
Lauren.
picture.
All right, this is simple. This is Norfolk, one picture. Please identify this insect on butterfly milkweed.
Yeah, these are oleander aphids, and they're also known as the milkweed aphid. They don't
And?
usually do any harm. What I do is get a blast of the hose, spray them off, and you've got to do that every couple days. There are a lot of predators out there that will eat them.
Perfect. Yeah, let
so
them
you
have
don't
them.
want to spray them, yeah.
We have two pictures on the next one. Jody, this is Rudbeckia, and she says, what are these? And they don't seem to be doing any damage. And how do you manage them?
Yeah, so this is a different kind of aphid. These red aphids are often found on like sunflowers. Is it Heliopsis type
And
plant?
Rudbeckia is in the same
Yep.
family.
So, I mean, they're just sucking the sap there. If you don't want them there, you can spray them with a blast of hose water as well. Again, there's a lot of predators out there, natural enemies that will feed on them.
Perfect. You have one picture on this one. These things are decimating the eggplant. This is Underwood, Iowa. What is this?
Yeah, so, you know, people always say, is this good or bad? These are bad. And they come in large numbers and will eat voraciously and destroy the plant. If you see them like this, I would put a glove on because these are ash gray blister beetles. So they have a chemical cantharidin that can cause blisters to your skin. So put on a glove and knock them into soapy water.
All right, and one more picture for you. This is so cool. This is on the ceiling of the back porch. He thought it looked like a string of tiny pearls, and then there was a dense web. What is this?
Yeah, this one was really interesting, and Kate knew it right away. And it is a kind of spider called a cribellate spider, orb weaver, and these are its eggs. And it lays these in this this pearl necklace type thing. And actually the spider may be in there, like along that line. And the cool thing about that spider is it does not have venom.
Really? So just fun to look at.
It has other ways.
Other ways of killing
Yeah,
something.
so it's a cribellate orb weaver.
Cool. All right. Thanks, Jody. Terry, this is a cool one too, and creepy. Two pictures on this. This is a vine, he's calling it, growing in a CRP in Platte County. They burned it this spring, interseeded with a pollinator mix, and the neighbor across the road has this too.
This was a fun one. So this is Dodder, D-O-D-D-E-R. This is actually a parasitic plant. So I'm going to kind of give you the morphology of it. So it's going to start by seed. It's going to send a tiny little root down into the soil to get it up and going. Once it gets up and it attaches to a plant, that root will actually dislodge out of the soil and it will become a parasitic plant with that hosting on that plant. So it's going to take all of the energy out of that plant that it's all around. So really the only thing you're going to be able to do is you're going to have to pull everything out. Make sure that you put it in a plastic bag and dispose of it in the trash. There's really not much you can do about it otherwise. You'll have to take its host plant too. You will also just a little bit of information for it. So the waterfowl like its seeds, and that's most likely how it moved about. But the pollen and the nectar are actually toxic to bees. So you really want to try to get rid of that out of your landscape.
All right, thanks, Terry. One picture on the next one and the one following, Seward and Superior. So this is nutsedge, and she's wondering, is it useless to spray after it is big? Shall she just wait? And if she pulls it near plants, is there another product she can use that won't hurt everything else?
So there's a couple things. You can spray it. I would not recommend spraying anything right now just because it is just so hot. But really one of the best ways to get rid of yellow nutsedge, and that's what this is just to continually pulling it. What you're doing is as you pull it every single time, you're taking all of that energy out of that plant. Yes, you do disrupt the little nutlets underneath there, and they can, but you're taking away the energy from those nutlets. So it may take you a year or two to finally eradicate it, but they're easy to pull. Just go out there, a couple times a week and just pull them out.
All right, and I think your next picture is nutsedge in full flower, so there you go.
Yeah, so this one's in full flower. Make sure that you definitely get those seeds because you'll have the nutlets plus the seeds and then you'll have twice as many out there.
All right, thanks. Lauren, you have 3 pictures on this one. Oh, one more, sorry. This one I forgot is a grass to identify. And what is this?
I think this is one of the forage fescues. They kind of talked that they had maybe overseeded. Depending on how many they have within their turf, I didn't really get that out of the question. You can go out there with a sharp shovel or your soil knife and dig them out. Make sure you get the root out too. Otherwise, you're going to have to use a non-selective herbicide and then just overseed.
All right, thanks, Terry. Now, Lauren, you have 3 pictures on the next one. This is Papillion. He thought at first his wife, he was throwing his wife under the bus here. He thought she left the trash cans sitting too long in the same spot. But that was a lot of trash cans. So what is this?
Well, you can see the rings in this, and if we zoom in on one of the pictures, you can see it's kind of a bleached straw color. I believe this is summer patch, and with summer patch, there's not a lot you can do right now. This is a disease that affects the root system, and you can go in and dig up some of those plants on that hedge, and if those roots are dark brown, that'll kind of confirm the diagnosis as well. You're going to want to manage this in the spring, though, when your soil temperatures are 65 degrees. And then look at an application of a fungicide you can water in to try to protect those roots and try to get good root growth. That's really the only management as far as treatment. Right now you're just trying to keep a plant with a limited root system alive, so just frequent irrigations, syringing type activity in that area where you have that reduced root system.
And if that plant happens to croak between now and whenever it's not, it's totally croaked, right?
Yeah, and it probably will. There can even be dead rings that you may need to do some overseeding in the fall.
All right, thanks, Lauren. You have 1 picture on the next one. This pops up in the same 3 spots every year that get about 6 hours of direct sun, and this is in sod laid down about 3 months ago.
Yeah, so this is a type of yellow slime mold. These are actually some of the fruiting bodies of the slime mold, and one of nature's beautiful pageantries, or whatever we want to call it. But it's a slime mold. You could take a hose and wash it away.
Cool, and it almost looks like little insect eggs.
Yeah, that was the only thing when I was looking at it. I was wondering if Jody needed to look at it. But no.
I was like, that's cool.
Okay, 2 pics on the next one, Lauren, and this is Omaha. This is white powdery substance on some of the turf. They're wondering what it is. Is it safe for children, and can you get rid of it?
Different color, the same thing we were looking at with the yellow. This is a gray slime mold. Again, it's living and growing on the nutrients on the leaf tissue, so just taking a hose and washing it away is the easiest thing to do, but it's probably going to reoccur.
All right, thanks, Lauren. Kelly, 1 picture on the first one. This is a Decatur viewer. Planted green beans in mid-May. The vines are gorgeous. There are flowers, not one single bean. What's going on?
Okay, well, usually when this happens, it's the first thing is make sure you're not over-fertilizing with nitrogen, because that can cause a plant to be beautiful, grow great, lush, succulent, but stay in that vegetative state and not go into that reproductive state of blooming and setting flowers and setting fruit. Sorry. The other thing, it could just be night temperatures. High nighttime temperatures interferes with you get pollination, but you might not get fertilization of the flower. So one or the other. We always tell people to be patient, be careful with the nitrogen, don't add any more possibly, and be patient, and hopefully it'll cool down.
Exactly. All right. And then we have another one. This is also beans, but she's saying they're flat, they're stringy, and they don't taste very well. Is this just varietal, or what do you think?
Well, it could be varietal, it could be environmental. I have heard that at one time there was a blue lake pole bean that was stringy and kind of flat and didn't taste very good, and they thought maybe it was reverting back to one of the parents, but I haven't heard of that in a long time, so I don't know that it would be that. It's more likely environmental.
All right, one picture on this one. This is a Creighton, Nebraska viewer. Zucchini are light in color. They start out dark green. They smell like ammonia, and they are bitter. And somebody ate one and cooked with it, and it made them sick. What is this?
Okay, well, the bitterness is caused by a compound called cucurbitacin. And so a lot of our wild cucurbits, like burr cucumber, wild cucumber, and so on, have very high levels of this cucurbitacin in it. So mammals and insects and whatnot won't eat them. It's been bred out of a lot of our domestic varieties. So possibly, sometimes if you might have had a cross-pollination with one of the wild cucumbers or burr cucumber or something, and then that will increase that cucurbitacin. And yeah, if there's high levels of it in there, I've heard there's, very tiny amounts can cause diarrhea or stomach cramps. So if it tastes bitter, spit it out. And then ideally you wouldn't, if something's a volunteer, then you wouldn't want to eat it.
All right, thanks. And one more, and this is a Syracuse viewer. What is causing these tomatoes to split?
Well, heavy rain. If you had heavy rainfall in your area, so the plant suddenly takes up a lot of water, and that causes the skin to split, or uneven watering. So if you haven't had a lot of rain, if uneven watering, letting the soil get really dry and then watering quite a lot will cause them to split and crack as well.
All right.
A uniform moisture.
All right, thanks, Kelly. Well, we showed you some onions, some garlic, and some shallots out in our production garden a few weeks ago. They've been harvested. Something new is in their place. Let's hear from Terry out at the Backyard Farmer Garden.
This week in the Backyard Farmer Garden, we're looking ahead to fall. Remember a couple weeks ago we talked about pulling our shallots and our garlic and our onions out of the garden. Well, we didn't want to leave any blank space there, so we went ahead and planted some green beans and some cucumbers in that space. We are at the 1st of August and we're looking at kind of transitioning into that fall gardening. So check what you want to see, check what's going well. If it's not going well, if you got some of those nasty squash bugs on your zucchini, go ahead and rip those out, and maybe you can start some new seeds and be able to get some new plants before it gets cold. We're also going into some really hot weather again, and we're also going into most likely some low precipitation times again into the summer. So make sure that you're watering and you're checking all your plants every day. So stop by the Backyard Farmer Garden and check it out.
Right now, of course, it is time for the lightning round. All right, you ready, Kelly?
Ready.
Your first question is from a Lincoln viewer. She wonders, will Brussels sprouts seeds germinate in this heat?
Not very readily, and the hot soil temperature is what will limit it.
All right, and her second question is, when should she start those seeds so she can have Brussels this fall?
Well, usually it's late July that we say to start them, and what some people will do in the ground is if they do plant it into the soil, you can either start it indoors, or if you do plant it in the soil, they'll moisten it, and then I've heard of putting a mulch or even a board over it, but you got to check it every day to keep it a little bit cooler. You got to check it every day and remove that as soon as it starts to mulch, otherwise it'll sunburn.
That's heat lightning. So we have a Morse Bluff viewer who has a fiddle leaf fig that has gotten too big. Can he cut the top off, or are there places that will accept donations?
I don't know about cutting the top off. You can try it, or you can be nice and give it away. I'm not sure.
We have a Louisville viewer who has a tree seedling in a little hydrangea. How do you get rid of those?
Well, tree seedling, a little hydrangea. If it's a little tree seedling, you pull it as quickly as you can. Otherwise, keep pulling it, keep clipping it. It'll eventually run out of stored food, or you have to carefully spot treat it with a non-selective.
All right, thanks, Kelly. Okay, Lauren, you ready?
Try hard.
That's right.
Okay, your first one is...
I'm surrounded by girls tonight, so I might not do a great job. Try to give it.
Your first one is viewer knows he has rose rosette on his hybrid teas. He's pulling them out. Should he add any chemicals to the soil before he replants in that spot?
No.
All right. The second question is there a deterrent of some sort that people can put on their lawns to keep those mushrooms from sprouting?
No.
The third is,
I'm liking these questions. I could win.
we have a viewer who wonders whether she's got stinkhorns coming up under her cherry tree. She wonders if the stinkhorns are going to hurt her cherry tree.
No.
We have a Sutton viewer who is wondering about what you say about keeping peaches on the counter. How do you keep them from molding?
Oh, hot water bath. I can't remember the exact temperature. I have to look it up, but soak them in a hot water bath, not boiling, about a minute, and then that'll remove a lot of the spores and they won't rot.
All right.
Brown rot.
We have an Omaha viewer who has a 25 to 30-year-old group of barberries, and some of the branches are dying. Is there a disease of barberries going around right now?
Pass. I'm drawing a blank on that.
There actually is, but those are pretty old.
Okay. Well. Okay.
Nice job.
I like the yes,
they
no.
give you
You
that
did that. You just did that for.
No,
make
those
it
were
easy
real
on me
questions
tonight.
from real viewers. I didn't make
That's
those
good.
up.
No, that's good. I like the yes, nos.
So now we know we have to say below.
Yeah.
4.
All right, you ready?
Yep.
Okay. This is a viewer, Terry, we don't know where they're from, who is wondering about fall fertilizer and should he add sulfur or iron to his fertilizer.
Not without any kind of soil test.
All right. This is a Dodge viewer who wonders about should you power rake or aerate before you seed in the fall.
Aerate.
We have a viewer who wonders, is there a way to kill the shoots from trees and shrubs that sucker without killing the main plant? And they're saying mowing does not work.
Yeah, there is a chemical called sucker stopper that you can actually spray on it to help, but it's not ever going to eliminate it completely.
All right. This is a Bellevue viewer whose neighbor used something called total ground kill, or at least that's the description, on trees in a fence. He's wondering, will that spread in the soil and just kill more and more and more?
It depends on what the active ingredients are. Without knowing what the active ingredients are, I can't tell you.
All right. Do you know whether quinclorac is harmful to goats if goats eat the bindweed that was treated with quinclorac?
I don't know. I'm sorry.
That's a great question. We might have to look that one up for Dennis
That
next
might
time
be a
he's on.
veterinary question.
All right, Jody, you're up. Ready?
Yep.
We have a viewer who's wondering, and we talked Japanese beetles this morning, he's heard you can use milky spore 3 times for a couple of years and that will get rid of them.
The research is all over the place,
So no. All right, we have a Sioux City viewer who has 1/16 inch orangish ants in the basement. They've used taro and a borax plus sugar mix. Nothing's working.
I still need to know what kind of ant that is, because if it's a different kind of ant, it may like grease or protein.
All right. We have a Bellevue viewer who says they have an ant hill. The ants are walking down the walk carrying something white and then going back again and coming back. What are they carrying and what are they doing?
They're probably carrying their eggs and larvae, so they're moving house.
We have an Omaha viewer who has bagworms clinging to the tree. Is there a way to get rid of them without spraying a chemical?
Can you reach them, pick them off?
All right. This is a viewer who wants to know how to get rid of fruit flies in the kitchen.
Okay, if you're looking for the adult flies, you can do apple cider vinegar in a kind of a cup, put some dish soap, and the adults will go in there. But if you want to stop them completely, you need to break the life cycle and find out where they're breeding.
And you win the prize.
Thank you.
Sorry, Lauren.
All right. Kelly, what are our plants of the week?
Okay, the plants of the week, this a little bit taller one with purple flowers. We'll let you get to it.
In a minute, there you
There
go.
we go. This is China purple. It's a tube or shrub clematis. I don't know if I can show it and get it. So it's right there you go. It gets about 3 to 4 feet tall, and then it will die back to the ground in the winter. They grow best in part shade to sun, and they like good soil. So, and then the other one, the smaller one, going down. There we go. It looks like they're kind of closing up. But this is a candy lily, Dazzler series candle lily. It's a hybrid. It kind of has iris-like leaves. You can't really see them in here. And it grows up to about 3 feet tall, so it gets fairly tall. And some people might look at it and think it looks like a blackberry lily, but it's not. It is, and it will not produce the seed like blackberry lily does.
All right, thanks, Kelly. Picture one for you, Jody. This is, they're west of Kearney. They found this beautiful beetle in the soil. What is it?
It's a green June beetle.
Good guy?
In this phase, it's pretty good.
All right. You have one picture on the next one. This is in Lincoln, 50-year-old tree. This is a magnolia, and there's two to follow on this also. They've sprayed with neem. The scale has worsened, so they're talking about dinotephuran or an imidacloprid. How do they deal with magnolia scale?
So that's magnolia scale, and neem doesn't work, and it also has to do with timing. So the timing is going to be the end of August, beginning of September, and when they're crawlers, that's when they're susceptible. They mentioned dinotephuran and imidacloprid, which are systemics, and so I believe only one of them you can get do-it-yourself kind of homeowner. So the other one you'd probably have to call a certified arborist or a pesticide applicator.
All right, and that's true for those other two pictures of the same thing.
Right,
Yeah,
and that
that's
might be
pretty. Yeah.
Yeah.
So then we have this going on with magnolia. What is going on with that one?
It looks like herbicide drift, and I know there is a gall for magnolia, but that does not look like what it is.
All right. So and that's in Elm Creek. So drift and keep that plant pretty healthy.
Yeah, pretty healthy.
All right. Then we have, I think, is that your last picture, I think? One more. This one comes to us from Indianola. And this is a bur oak planted 2 years ago, but now it's got these leaf-like growths on the majority of the new.
Yeah, so this is oak rosette gall. And so a gall is of normal growth and this is created initially from a small, tiny wasp that may be ovipositing, and it just creates this abnormal growth. So you can prune it off if you don't like it, but it shouldn't kill the plant.
Wouldn't kill it. All right, excellent. Terry, you have 3 pictures on this first one. This comes to us from Bennington. She wants to keep native thistles because she knows how important they are for pollinators, but she doesn't know whether this is native or not. So we have kind of the big picture, and then we have, I think, a couple of close-ups on this one.
Yeah, I think this is the noxious one that you're probably going to have to knock back. Looks to me like it's Canadian thistle. So make sure that you're mowing it down and using a broadleaf herbicide on it.
All right, and not letting it go to seed.
Correct.
Okay, 2 pictures on the next one. This comes to us from someone who wants to know the best way to kill bindweed. Glyphosate, triclopyr diluted, undiluted with glove of death. Paint it, cut it back first. What do we recommend?
So actually quinclorac is one that you need to look for that actually does better on the bindweed. So look for one that has quinclorac as one of the active ingredients. And yes, I would probably use the glove of death, especially in those where it's in and amongst the other plants that you want to keep. And Rock has a really good video on our YouTube channel to check that out.
All right, and one more picture. This is a Lincoln viewer. Just one more. This is the only picture we could get. So what's going on with the lawn here?
So I think there's a couple things. One of them, I believe, is kind of just the stripes of where they fertilized. They also could maybe have either brown patch or summer patch a little bit in there. There was nothing any closer, so those were really the only 2 things that I could come up with.
All right, thanks, Terry. Let's see, Lauren, you have this very first one here. So super large brown mushroom things under the ash tree. What are they? They appear yearly, more and more of them. Are they harmful?
Yeah, so this is just the top side. If you see the underside is yellow and spongy, I think it could be an ash bolete. So look up a picture of ash bolete, look at the underside and see if that's the case.
And how do you get rid of them?
Just pick them out. They're not known to be poisonous if you have pets, but in any case, they can react. So I would just pick them up and discard them.
All right, one pick on the next one. This is front flower bed. First he thought it was a fungus, and then we're supposed to be asked. So what do you think?
A couple things here. I'm assuming that those are roots that I'm seeing that are the thread-like growths. I don't see something that would be like mycelial growth like we would see a lot of times with a mat. They did indicate it was across the whole bottom of a flower bed, so I'm just questioning if something else wasn't there, maybe when they put the soil in to build the bed, if it's that uniform across the bed. I think something else is at play.
All right, one picture on the next one. This is a Lincoln viewer. Is this a fungus among us? And then there's somebody else in the second picture that kind of has something very similar.
These are bird nest fungi, so very common, similar here, just different types of pictures. They grow on organic material. There was also a question if they're poisonous or not. There's been no studies to indicate these are poisonous, although no one really tries to eat them usually because they're little.
All right, and then one more, and this, she said, interesting little peach-colored bubble fungus on the tree stump.
Yeah, and this one's really neat. So I did some looking on this, and at first I thought it was some sort of a puffball, so I searched pink puffballs and found that it's actually related to slime molds, and these are the fruiting bodies of something that's called wolf's milk by common name. Lycogala is the genus.
All right, thanks, Lauren. 3 picks on the first one here, Kelly.
Okay.
These are pines are not looking the best. His real quick, and this is in Ida Grove, Iowa.
Okay.
She's wondering if she can go ahead and just cut out the dead and start over and end up with a tree.
You won't end up with a tree. It'll just kind of stay that little stump, shrubby little shrub. So if you really want to evergreen, replace it.
All right, 2 picks on the next one. This is a Bennett viewer, and this is ash, about 30 years old, never really healthy. It's got all sorts of things going on, sizable wounds in the trunk. Should they turn it into firewood or try to save it?
Well, it's an ash, so eventually it'll probably get emerald ash borer, even if it's not in that area yet. But the picture here of the trunk, obviously, there's probably what we call moweritis or weed trimmeritis that caused that damage and that wound, and looks like there could be some decay in there and so on. So this would be an ash tree that we definitely would not recommend treatment for in the future. And the sooner it's removed, the better. You can hang on to it for a little while and enjoy the shade.
Then we have an evergreen here and a spruce, and this is North Berm disease, sort of soaker hose. They wonder what's going on this one. And then we have 2 that are Council Bluffs that are also evergreens that are spruce. So we have 2 different spruce issues here.
Okay, I really couldn't. The ones that we're looking at right now were just planted this spring, and it's very unlikely that there would be a disease that soon. So it's look at your watering, look at how deep it was planted, check the soil. It's just, for some reason they're not transplanting very well, and they're suffering. That tall narrow one, it looked pretty good to me. I know there's some bare branches at the bottom. Just make sure water's not hitting it. Again, I'm not really sure what's going on there. It doesn't look too bad, I didn't think.
All right, thanks, Kelly. Well, Nebraska always has thunderstorms roll through this time of year, and that can really tear up our trees. Jeff is here for our second feature to tell us how we can safely clean them up and perhaps save some of them.
We've had a lot of storms roll through the state here in the last few weeks. Some high wind. I know we had some 50-mile-an-hour winds here on campus. And so when that happens, it's not unusual to have some damage to our trees, especially our bigger trees. So a few things to think about after a big storm. The first thing I would suggest you do is, after things have calmed down, go out, do a quick survey of the area, make sure that you don't have any damage to your trees. And in particular, you want to look at areas where we have pedestrians or vehicles going. You know, if you have a sidewalk, something that you have kids going up and down the street, you're going to want to make sure that you look at those areas first. And then if you do have some branches that are damaged, certainly anything that's down, we want to get picked up and out of the way. But if you have some branches that are broke, that are hanging from the tree, if it's something that you can reach safely, then certainly you can go in and try to take that branch down, finish the break, finish cutting the break, and then assess it at a later date as far as how much cutting you need to do. A lot of times the question will be is, what's the percentage? And folks will put out a percentage, take no more than a third, no more than a quarter. I really suggest you take as little as possible this time of year when you're doing any kind of storm removals. And if you have concerns about the height, how high a certain branch is to get to it, then that's when you need to call a professional in. If it's something that isn't too high and is a bigger branch, you're going to want to look at using the 3-cut method to remove the branch. And that's where you come in, you take an undercut, take the branch off, and then you go back to the branch bark ridge, which is right next to the main stem, and at a 45-degree angle, take the remaining stub off the tree. After you've done that, then you know that that tree is safe. If you have a split trunk, which we've seen a few of those here on campus, with a tree that might have kind of a broader crown to it, sometimes you'll see that where a crown will split. It's unlikely that that tree is going to survive that. You can take one half or the other, but you've really weakened that tree, and at this point, it's time to consider removal. So that's something to think of if you have a situation again where the trunk has split. You'll see that many times with maples in particular, that you'll have the split trunk. But again, I think the most important thing is make sure that the area is safe. Get any of that down, make sure that you're doing it safely with all your proper safety gear. You have your safety glasses, gloves, if you need a hard hat, if it's something above your head, make sure you get something like that to protect yourself, or again, call a professional in to make sure they take a look at those trees. We've all seen the videos online of people getting injured or having very catastrophic things happen as they try to do things that are really above their abilities. So it's important to bring in a professional to look at something before you get too far along in the process.
We cannot stress it enough. It's okay to do some trimming if your feet are on the ground and it's just a few branches. Please leave that heavy stuff to the professionals. All right, we have one announcement, and this is a fun one. This is the Lincoln Iris Society sale, July 29th, 10 to 4, St. Andrews here in Lincoln, for all of you who are iris lovers. Okay, Jody, one picture on the next one. This is a viewer who has these little egg things on his linden. Do we know what these are?
Yeah, these are stink bug eggs, but what's coming out of them are actually parasitic wasps. So you've got some free pest control there.
Perfect. All right, so nothing to do other than...
Nope.
Nope.
They're taking care of it.
All right, then we have this, just a question. This is an Omaha viewer. She wonders what we can tell her about this beautiful moth or butterfly.
Yeah, it is a beautiful moth, and it's a female imperial moth.
All right, and isn't it National Moth Week?
It was, I think,
Or was it
last week, but yeah,
Yeah.
it's beautiful, and we don't see them in all of Nebraska, so enjoy it.
Perfect. All right, two on the next one. Excuse me, this comes to us from Bellevue, wondering all these bees on this ornamental grass, what are they?
Okay, so first, I love this picture, and I actually encourage people to send these. These are longhorn bees. They're males having what we call a slumber party. So the female bees, they're busy. They get to sleep in the burrows. So these are ground nesting bees, and the males right at night. So if you have ornamental grasses, they will attach their mandibles to it in the evening, stay like that all night. You can go out in the morning, drink your coffee, and see the cutest bees. But again, they're the male bees having a sleepover.
Perfect. All right, Terry, 3 picks on the next one. This is a North Platte viewer wondering how to manage these weeds. They haven't responded to pretty much anything. What are they, and what do we do?
Well, this is Palmer amaranth. So unfortunately, the best way to manage this is go out, mow it down as much as you possibly can, and then you're probably going to have to use some kind of broadleaf weed killer on it. So don't let it go to seed. One plant could have over 10,000 seeds to it.
All right, one picture on the next one. This comes to us from Blair. And what do we think this pesky weed is, and how can they be eradicated?
So this is spotted spurge. So we've talked about that some on the show. There's a couple things that you can do. They're pretty easy to actually pull out. All you have to do is kind of get your finger right down at the center of the plant and pull it up. There's just kind of one little root that can pull up. Otherwise, you can use a broadleaf weed killer to spray on it.
All right, and one more, and this one is Falls City. What is this, and how do we eradicate it?
This is a giant ragweed, and again, keep mowing it. Don't let it go to seed, and then you're going to use a broadleaf weed killer on it.
All right, Lauren, 2 pictures on the very first one. So this is, excuse me, they're wondering about whether this mushroom will affect the harvesting and safety of oregano. And this is in a container.
Yeah, it shouldn't have any effect. This is interesting. This is a flower pot parasol mushroom that's fairly common, can be brought in with wood chips and mulch in these potting materials.
So it's actually called flower pot.
Flower pot parasol.
That's
Look it
fun.
up. Yeah, it's a fun one.
All right, so then you have one picture on this one. Saw this in the yard of a cabin up along the Platte River, northwest Sarpy County. It's in sandy soil. What is this?
It could be a Lepiota species. I can't really tell because just like Kyle was showing earlier, we need to see the underside of it to see what it looks like. But if it's larger, the way it looks, it could be a Lepiota.
Okay, and so this might be the one that last week, I think, Kyle, somebody called it a pancake mushroom.
Well, it could be very large. Some of those are very large, and even in the sandhills, if you're driving through, you can see large rings of mushrooms in the grass from a great distance, and they'll be over a foot.
Oh my goodness.
Really large.
All right, and you have one more, and this is an Omaha viewer. She says this is the second year this has shown up at the base of an ornamental crabapple. She wonders if we can identify it. Is it safe around pets? Is it edible? And oh gosh, is this good on the tree?
It's, well, several things no. Not good on the tree, most likely resulting from crown and root rot on the tree. This fruiting structure is, so I would start thinking about replacement on this tree. It can reduce the integrity of the actual main trunk of the tree, so it could be a hazard tree. If it's larger and near a house, I would be concerned about it. For removal, don't let your pets eat any fungi. Just avoid that.
All right, thanks. Kelly, you have one picture on this first one. This comes to us from Columbus.
Okay.
They say they purchase and pot up a new hibiscus every single year.
Mm-hmm.
The leaves on this one, and it looks like even the new growth, are beginning to yellowing.
Mm-hmm.
What should they be doing?
Well, it looks like classic chlorosis because the leaves are yellow. We all have that problem tonight. Excuse me. The leaves are yellow and the veins are still green. And usually that's chlorosis, and it could be a lack of iron, it could be a lack of manganese. It's a little unusual in a pot, a little unusual on hibiscus, but I guess I would try, again, make sure you're getting good drainage, make sure you have healthy roots. You could try maybe an iron sulfate or something like that. Be careful because it can burn, and see if you get a response.
All right, and they don't really say whether they've changed the potting soil either.
Yeah. If you don't get a response, then I would repot it into maybe a soil that says it's for azaleas.
All right, let's see. Then you have an ID on this next one. This is in Omaha, woody perennial vine. The flowers are about 1/2 inch across, and I think we have two pictures of this one.
Yeah, this is matrimony vine, also known as wolfberry, and these can get about 8 feet, and the berries are actually edible.
Yeah, I think this becomes the goji berry that is a superfruit that is dreadful. We have
Yeah, they can be pretty rampant.
yeah, and never die. We have them in the backyard farmer garden. We've tried to kill them for 10 years. All right, I think you have one more.
Okay.
And this is a Bellevue viewer, and they bought 4 plants at the beginning of this season. They thought they purchased butternut squash or winter squash. Is there any way really on this to tell what it is?
It's not butternut. It could be buttercup. There's one kabochi or something like that. That's the Cucurbitaceae maxima. I think it's a Japanese squash. There's different ones in there, but it's not butternut. But if it was buttercup, it would kind of have a scar on the bottom. But I still think it's a winter squash. I'd let it grow out, and hopefully they'll be tasty.
Let it turn whatever color it's
Yes.
going to turn, and do the scratch test, right?
Right.
We did have a gardener in Lincoln this year, or actually this week, who has butternut squash that is really almost ripe already. I mean, it's nice, it's big, it's
Yep.
almost ready to eat, and it's, oh my goodness, that's kind of a little late for,
early.
yeah, early.
It's
yeah,
early.
early for that to
So.
be ripening like that.
It is.
So